Now I'm going to say something that might hurt a little bit. This is the last sermon series before Christmas. I know that hurts. I'm sorry. Like I am so sorry. It's rough. I can hardly believe it. I was sitting in my office this week. I'm like, oh my gosh. This really is the last sermon series before my Christmas series. Huh. How about that? So this is the last series that we're going to have in our identity theme this year, because Christmas is always fun. Like, I always do something fun. And Sherry and I were, usually I have an idea the Christmas before what I'm going to do the next Christmas. This year I haven't had anything all year. Like, I was sitting in my office going through this sermon series, realizing that I have nothing for the next Christmas series. And I'm like, I'm in trouble. And Sherry and I were just sitting in the office talking, and she goes, Christmas is for Christ, not chaos. And we both just went, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. So that's our Christmas series this year. Christmas is for Christ, not chaos. And we're going to tackle 4 different movies this year. It should be good. 4 different movies. It's going to be hilarious, actually. Well, at least one of them is. So I usually try to have fun with Christmas. But in the last series before Christmas, what I usually try to do is, because I've got an idea, the leadership and I have got, we've been conversing already and talking about the theme for next year, and I've got an idea where we're going next year. So what I do is I try to take this last sermon series and transition from the theme of this year to the theme of next year. Next year we are looking at going to a theme of engage. We're going from identity to engage, because now that we know who we are in Christ, it's time to get up and do something. We have to. Like the series that I'm doing on Wednesday nights, in the adult class, worldviews, it's world religions and denominations, cults, and stuff like that. Like, that's all kind of part of it. Because here's the thing: like, we've been through Islam, we went through Buddhism last week. We're going to go through Hinduism this Wednesday. And if you've missed those, you want to. I've got cheat sheets on them, it's not a whole comprehensive thing, but I've got a couple of cheat sheets on them. But I'd encourage you to come Wednesday nights, because no matter what class you go to, you can't pick a bad one. You really can't. Tim teaches one that's with the young adults, and you can't hit her. You can't miss with your kids going to JJ and Stash or the children's ministry. We've got classes all over the place. But now that we know who we are in Jesus, it's time to stand up and engage. And we've got people of different religions all around us, and we need to know how to engage the world that is around us, no matter what walk of life that people are from. We're going to be in Daniel 1 today. The series that we're beginning today, as you can see on the board behind me, it's called Keeping Your Identity in a Foreign Land. And what I've done is I've mashed up 2 different pictures. There's a guy, he's actually standing in a church over off to the right by the wording. You can't really see it, but if I were to take the picture of the city away, he's actually standing in a church. And there are pews over on the right-hand side of the picture. And he's got his Bible right there, and he's standing there holding his Bible in the church. And then on top of that, I've faded out a picture of a city. Because here's the thing. We need to know how to keep our identity in a foreign land. Because I don't know that I have to really say this, but we are living in a Babylon-type of situation. The more time that passes, the more time it is that we are living in a culture that is absolutely against everything that Christianity stands for. And we cannot just go with the flow. When I thought of this series, I thought of the Chosen intro. Right? Like you've seen the Chosen? They have all these fish on the intro, and the fish are all gray, bland, and they're all just kind of all moving in one direction, and all of a sudden, a fish turns blue, and he starts walking against the grain, or swimming. Fish don't walk, fish swim. But he starts going against the grain, and as when we are before we meet Christ, we're all gray, we're all bland, we're all sheep, if you will, just kind of going with the flow of culture. And then Jesus gets a hold of us. That's when we start walking counterculturally. We have to. We cannot look like the world. Daniel 1. Actually fairly short. It's actually a fairly short chapter. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the articles from the temple of God. These he carried off to the temple of his God in Babylonia and put in the treasure of the house of his God. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. Young men without any physical defect, bless you, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and the literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them to a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that they were to enter the king's service. Among those who were chosen were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belteshazzar. Give me a second. Belteshazzar, that's what it is. Belteshazzar. To Hananiah, Shadrach. To Mishael, Meshach. And to Azariah, Abednego. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel, but the official told Daniel, "I'm afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you." Daniel then said to the guard, whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, "Please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see." So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. And Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. And at the end of the time set by the king to bring them into his service, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service. In every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them to be 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the 1st year of King Cyrus. We know them better. We know Daniel by Daniel, but we know them better by Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But actually, those are their Babylonian names. It's Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah are their given Hebrew names. Right? So these four men would have been raised, they would have been raised as Israelites. They would have grown up in Judah. They would have been taken to Babylon as young men, probably somewhere in their mid to late teens to early 20s somewhere. Like they would have been young men at that particular time, right? Nebuchadnezzar had them chosen based on some certain qualifications, okay? Nebuchadnezzar chose them. They had to be from royalty and nobility. So Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were all either from royal bloodlines or nobility status. Like they were cream of the crop, so to speak, in Israel. Actually, the kingdom of Judah, but still Israel. Like they were the cream of the crop. They were young men with no physical defect. They were handsome. They had to have an aptitude for learning. Like they couldn't be dumb. They had to be learned and smart. They had to be informed. They had to be quick to understand. They pick up on stuff quick, right? They had to be qualified to serve in the king's palace. But here's the thing. Man chooses based on one thing. God chooses based on different standards. I don't know if you've picked up on this before, but in Daniel, there are points in here that you can kind of deduce out of this. These four young men would have been made into eunuchs. I didn't pick up on that until a few years ago. I was like, wait a minute, what? Yeah, they would have been. That was part of the culture, and that's part of how they operated. And according to the law, in Deuteronomy 23 verse 1, because of that fact, they were actually ineligible to be a part of the congregation of Israel anymore because they had been made into eunuchs. But you see, God still chose them and used them anyway. Here's what I want you to notice. I'm pointing out these things, obviously, on purpose. I want you to notice here that they were raised and established in the faith at a young age. It was then, as they got older, that they were educated in the Babylonian language and literature. And then, despite the education in the foreign land, they stayed true to the Lord and set apart, holy. They refused to eat the king's food and to not defile themselves. What does that look like? What does that mean? That means that there were certain things that they were not allowed to eat. They can't have pork, shellfish. They can't have the only kind of fish, they can have fish and things with scales. They could have a cow to eat. Deer are clean, but they're like, you can't eat buzzards and certain types of birds, hawks and eagles and things like that. There would have probably been all kinds of food in the king's allotment of food that they would not have been able to eat. It would have been off limits for them. So what they did is they go to this chief of the eunuchs that was over them, and he's like, can we please not? This is the Daniel diet. I actually did this once, 10 days. This is how I found out that my body does not like wheat. So what you do, you literally eat vegetables and water, like you eat vegetables and water, and then after you do this diet, you slowly add back in dairy, and you add back in breads, meats, sugar, things like that. And what you find, I'm telling you, if you've never done this, you need to do it. But like, I see a few looks around the room of people who've done this. Like, you know what this does. It cleanses your body. Like, when you start adding these things back, you're going to notice a difference. Dairy and I get along very, very well. And for my diet, I can have as much dairy as I want because it doesn't raise my blood sugar and my body processes it well. But I don't process sugar. I don't process wheat very well. And there are some meats that I don't process well either. They looked better. And after doing the Daniel diet myself, I'm positive that they felt better. I'm positive that they probably felt better than the other ones too. You see, I say this because here's the thing. We have to be countercultural. We cannot just go with the flow and expect everything to go the way we want. There is so much in our culture that for Christians, it is not healthy. And I touched on this. I touched on this a little bit a couple of weeks ago. And here's the thing. Being countercultural starts at home. And the reason that I say that it starts at home, because Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were raised in the faith. They were raised in the faith in a young age. Children's minds are so impressionable, and we cannot allow the world to squeak in the destructive satanic influences on them. We can't. We have got to protect our children from the destructive satanic infiltration that has come. It is an indoctrination that is trying to go on our kids right now. Like, we have to protect our children. It is why the push to normalize the LGBTQ agenda. It is why the push to push social justice. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. I read just this morning an article was talking about how two of these progressive Christian pastors, and I use that term extremely loosely because they are not pastors, they wrote a Bible for children that pushes the progressive agenda, teaching them LGBTQ stuff because we need to influence them away from traditional values. No. Y'all are false teachers. Y'all are false teachers. There's no two ways about it. We have got to protect our kids. And it's the problem is they put it out with a Christian publishing company. Like, no. I don't remember the name of the publishing company, but it's not a mainstream one. But you better believe it, I'm going to look it up, write it down, and make sure that I never buy one of their books again. Because that ain't going to happen. Not going to happen. Not on my watch. If you want, I don't have time to go into the whole social justice thing, because justice is a thing of God. But the problem is that it has been twisted into something that is not biblical. If you want to listen to a good sermon on the subject of justice and social justice, Matt Chandler from October 5th, his sermon that day titled Justice, go and listen to it. It is a fantastic sermon. And if you want to know more on why social justice is not the progressive social justice is not actually a biblical thing, you need to go listen to that sermon, because Matt does a really, really good job, and I don't have the time to get into it this morning. But that's why they push these agendas at such young ages. It's why they try to do this to these kids when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, because kids that age are extremely impressionable, and they pick up on stuff, and it's like they're going to grow up with this being normalized. No. Here's the thing. Abe Lincoln said this. There's going to be a quote that comes up here. The philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. There is a hostile takeover coming of our government, and they're starting with our children. The fortunate part is that God is more powerful than the enemy. We have to protect our children. We have to protect our children. In Oklahoma, they are trying to put the Bible back in the classroom. I love this, but I don't love this. And most of you are going, whoa, wait, the preacher doesn't like this? Yeah, no, I don't. And let me tell you why I don't like this. Because there are too many unqualified teachers biblically in our school system. I do not want someone who is biblically unqualified teaching my kid the Bible. Because what you're going to get is a progressive agenda out of the Bible. They're going to twist it. I don't want some unqualified teacher teaching my kid. I don't want it. I don't think it is a good idea. What I think is a good idea is to allow the kids to have like the FCA at our school. Like we have an FCA here, and I know the teacher that runs it. He is a fantastic guy. They come in, they fellowship together, they study together. It is a group for Christian students to come together and do their thing. I love it. That is what we need. I don't want some unqualified teacher teaching this stuff. But here's the thing. Very rarely do they get it in the school classroom. If you have a Christian teacher, they are going to be more likely to subtly push a biblical agenda. You have to be subtle about it these days, because otherwise you get in trouble. But if you can do it subtly and push kind of a biblical agenda in the classroom, and we have teachers that do that, and God bless them for doing that, because we need that. We need good biblically qualified teachers in our classrooms. But even those teachers are few and far between. And here's the other thing. The time that we have with your children here at church isn't enough either. We get them for an hour on Wednesday, and we get them for an hour, maybe two, on Sunday morning. That is not enough time. It just isn't. It just isn't. There's not enough time to set a good foundation of a biblical worldview in your children with the amount of time that we've got. Here's the thing. It has to be taught at home. It has to be taught at home. It cannot be taught any other way. What we do here on Sundays and Wednesdays needs to be a supplement for what you are doing for your kids every other day of the week. It has to be. We can't be your main biblical teachers. The best youth pastor that your child will ever have is you. It's you. You're the best one. Parents, grandparents, this takes intentionality. It takes being equipped ourselves, knowing who we are in Jesus. I'm telling you, there's a reason why we were on identity this year. We have to know who we are in Jesus, because we cannot pass this down to anybody, let alone our kids, if we don't know it. We have to know. Knowing who you are in Jesus is the very foundation of everything that we do. Man, know who you've been created to be in Jesus. Know that. I cannot stress that enough. If you need to say it out loud 50 times every minute in order to start to believe that, then do it. Because let me tell you what, I joke about this all the time. Sherry and I both, we both laugh, but there have been points in our marriage where my bathroom mirror is covered, and there's just enough space for me to see myself in the mirror, plugged up with Post-it notes, reminding me of who I am in Jesus, because I need that reminder. Because man, I'm human, I forget. I am my own worst critic, and I'm betting that you're probably like me, because it's easier to believe the bad stuff that people say about you than it is the good stuff. I know you've had people tear you down in your life. I had great parents that didn't tear me down. Some people did not have great parents. But I'm telling you, you know where I got torn down at? The public school system. Because I was made fun of, I was bullied because I was different. If I was in school these days, I'd have probably gotten labeled with some kind of ism, something or other. I was doing dishes yesterday, and I'm like it's gross, dude. Like some of the I hate dirty dishes. And I'm sitting here and I'm just I'm almost gagging and trying not to throw up, and it's just ugh. Yeah, it's gross. And Sherry's over here laughing her head off, and I'm over here going, it's times she goes, now you know what your daughter feels like. I'm like, where do you think she got it? Hannah's the same way. She hates dirty dishes. Where do you think Hannah got it from? She got it honestly from me, because these are the moments that I think, you know what, Hannah and I have more in common than I think. Maybe I am autistic. Maybe there is something there. There are just some textures that I'm But I got bullied. I got bullied in the school system. That's where I got torn down at. It wasn't at home. And if you got it at home and at school, you have my compassion. Because that's a real thing. And my friends, that's tragic. Because it absolutely ruins the picture you have of God. I cannot tell you how important it is to biblically, godly influence our children at young ages. I cannot tell you how important that is. Proverbs 22:6 says, train a child in the way they should go, and when they grow old, they will not depart from it. That is the philosophy of how Sherry and I raised our girls. There were moments that we struggled, as every parent does. But I'm telling you, right? But I'm telling you, that is the philosophy. We have to train our children in the way they should go young, so that way when they get older, we have the ability to teach them the things that the world teaches them and why it's wrong. And that's what we need to do. We need to teach our children the truth, and then teach them what the world teaches them and why it's wrong. Why does it? Legalism breeds rebellion. I'm going to say that one more time. Legalism breeds rebellion. If you just sit there and say, this is the way it is, do what I say, don't question me, you are going to breed rebellion in your children. Because you're not telling them why what you don't want them to do is wrong. Your kids are not dumb. They're very intelligent. They will pick up on more than what you think they will. Talk to them. It's okay. Talk to them. When Avi and Hannah were in school, we did homeschool them for a couple of years, but that just two people working. I'd be like, It didn't work. So we had to put them in the public school system because I can't afford to put them in private school. Like I can't afford it. So what we did is this. We put the kids in public school out of a lack of options. And when we would go through the classroom stuff with them, especially in science and history, geography, stuff like that. We would go through classes like their homework and stuff with them, especially in science with like evolution stuff. Okay, so this is the answer they want you to put. This is the truth. This is why this is wrong. And I take the opportunity to teach my kids a biblical worldview in that moment. This is what the world says. This is what God says. This is why this is incorrect. And I'm not saying that's the best way to do it. That's just how Sherry and I did it. Take the opportunity to be with your kids, you are going to be their best youth pastor. You are going to be their best teacher. Like any good teacher in a school system will tell you that. You are your child's best teacher. And I think part of the reason that our culture is in where we are in is because parents haven't taken an active role in their child's raising. Remember when I talked about last week how all this started with the Industrial Revolution? It took dad out of the house, then it took mom out of the house, and now the state raises the kid. Well, these are the consequences of that. Is we are in a position now to where kids have not gotten the proper instructions biblically from their parents, and we've been too legalistic, and what it's done is it's bred rebellion. When it comes to being in a foreign land, we have to follow God's commands and standards when they differ from that of the foreign land. Let me give you a few examples. In America, marriage is a contract. Literally, it is a contract. You go to the courthouse, you get a piece of paper from the state, and you sign it. You have an authorized official of the state sign it, and you have to make sure it's filled out. For the love of Jesus, make sure you have it filled out correctly. Because they will send it back. We did that when we first moved over here. Like, I filled it out wrong, and they sent it back. I'm sorry, Abby and Cody, we had to do this again. One more time. But it's a contract. That's what you're doing. You're signing a contract. That's how it is in America. Marriage in the kingdom of heaven is a covenant. A covenant is something much more significant. I'm going to explain that in just a second. The other aspect is that a marriage in America has been absolutely, positively cheapened. We've made it completely too easy. We want to test the waters before we get married. We want to live together. We want to have sex before we're married. We want to test the waters to make sure that everything goes okay before we actually commit to a covenant relationship. No. We want to, how's that saying go? Why buy the cow when you can have the milk for free? That kind of applies here. Like we need to not cheapen marriage. Marriage, what we want is we want marriage without the covenant, and we want marriage without the ceremony. I'm sorry, but a gay or lesbian couple can never technically be married in the Lord's eyes. And I'll tell you why they can't be married in the Lord's eyes, is because they cannot consummate the marriage. That is what consummates a marriage. is the consummation between husband and wife. It is that act of intimacy between a husband and a wife that seals the covenant. That can't happen in a gay relationship. It's not possible. Therefore, it's just straight sin. Like, it's not possible to do that. And like, we want, not only do we want marriage without the covenant, but we want marriage without the ceremony. Like, Genesis 15. Like, when I thought about this, Genesis 15 was what popped into my head, because this is what a covenant looks like. You want to know where we got our modern day marriage covenant practices from? Right here in Genesis 15. Right here. And as I read this, I want you to kind of pay attention and think of a wedding ceremony. Okay? He also said to him, I am the Lord. This is right after my favorite passage, right? God has gone to Abram and says, I'm going to make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. And Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness, one of the core six, right? The very next verse. He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans and to give you this land to take possession of it. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterwards they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking firepot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, To your descendants I give this land, from the Wadi of the Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. That's a whole lot of ites. That's a whole lot of ites. Woo! That's because I've read that passage a lot. Like, it just, like, woo! Here's the thing. Abram took half of the carcass and half of the carcass. He took half of the carcass and half of the carcass. He took half of the carcass and half of the carcass. And then God... Oh, really? And then the blazing fire passed between the two halves. That is a covenant ceremony. Is that not a picture of a wedding? Is that not a picture of a wedding ceremony? Is that not what we do? That is a ceremony, is what that is. We can't have this whole making marriage into whatever we want it to be. Marriage is a sacred thing. We cannot look like the rest of the world going all this way. It's okay to live together. It's okay to not have ceremony. It's okay to do this. But when we turn Christian, we have to turn and go the other way. And it's like, no, we have to do this absolutely, positively, biblically. Because I'm telling you, as an example, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Sherry and I did this wrong. And I'm telling you, it causes problems down the road. Don't do it wrong. Because when you do, when you go against God, there are consequences to it. It has caused more marriage problems. But praise God, the Lord has brought us through them, and Sherry and I are closer together than we ever have been. Here's the other thing about marriage, is that divorce has been made way too easy. We have a thing called no-fault divorce. Like, what? We mean no-fault divorce. The only biblical reason for a divorce is adultery. And I would, we kind of here as a leadership of kind of like abuse follows into that category. Like if you're being abused in your relationship, your partner is not upholding their end of the covenant. That is not a covenant. That is abuse. That is slavery. Those are the only ways that we should be allowed out of America. It's too easy to call it quits. It's like, I found somebody else better than you. You know what? I'm just ready to go. We do. We just up and we leave. Like, what in the world? Like, in a covenant, divorce are not even words that get spoken. Sherry and I have been close a couple different times. I'm telling you, we've had it rough. We've had it rough. We've gotten close on the big D word a couple different times. And the last time that it happened, we made a covenant together that neither one of us was going to bring that word up ever again. Never again. That word does not come up. It's not an option. It's not an option. In a even in biblical grounds, even if your spouse has cheated on you, exhaust every possibility prior. God still doesn't want you to get divorced. He prefers reconciliation, if at all possible, because repentance is what we're going for here. Here's the question that you ask God, and I so totally stole this from Aaron. Sorry, but not sorry. Here's the question. Does this honor God? Is this drawing me closer to God, or is this drawing me away from God? When we do anything in a marriage context, is this drawing me closer to God? Is this drawing us closer to the Lord, or is this drawing us away from the Lord? Here's another one. Nicotine and marijuana, addictive substances. Now, nicotine is completely legal. It is completely legal. You can go down, like we've got 2 smoke shops within a couple of miles. Like you can go down and buy a pack of cigarettes and you can smoke them. Like it's totally legal. Marijuana is legal medicinally, but it gets abused. Guarantee it. You mean to tell me there aren't doctors out there that are just writing script for it? I guarantee there are. Here's the thing. It may be legal. Like it's completely legal in like Washington and Colorado. It may be legal. But here's the thing, anything that alters the mind is against what God says. Is this bringing me closer to God, or is this moving me away from Him? Halloween is coming up. Do we really want to dress our kids up as witches and devils, dress our kids up in the occult? Oh my gosh. Last year, we were down on Main Street, and the amount of Mike Myers costumes on 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids blew my mind. Why on God's green earth would you allow your child to dress up like that? Like, that is pure evil. As Christians, we cannot go with the world. That's what we did with our kids. Like, you can dress like anything you want for Halloween. You can go out, you can go trick-or-treating, we'll have fun with it, have a harvest party, whatever. You're not dressing up as anything evil or scary. Not happening. Not happening. Not in my house. Is this drawing me closer to God? Would you say, Sherry? No, yeah, not with me as your mama. Yeah, and no clowns. Yeah, no clowns. Like, woo, Lordy. You don't want to see that, trust me. No. Is this drawing me closer to God, or is this drawing me away from God? Here's another one. Food in America is absolutely uber processed. It is fatty. It is salty. It is, I'm inventing a word here, it is carby. Like we are carbaholics around this nation. Like, my goodness, we can't have anything without bread, pasta, or some kind of sugar something or other. Like, oh my gosh. I'm diabetic. I have not been eating confession time, whatever you want to see this as. Like, there's a whole bunch of people that know this. It's not like you don't know it. I have not been eating well. I've not been eating well. My blood sugar has averaged between 140 and 170 the last month or so. It took me 4 days of eating right to get my average blood sugar under 120 for the day. 4 days of eating right. Now, I'm diabetic. That's one thing. You might not be diabetic, but I'm telling you, the food in America, we see food as recreation. Food, my friends, is fuel. It is nothing more. It is nothing less. Now, God did prescribe feast days where they go and they pig out. The problem is that we've got a buffet on every corner, and we make that an every week thing, and maybe an everyday thing, and when God prescribed it to be like 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 times a year. We need to eat better. Like, this is my new thing. I'm done with it. I'm done with my blood sugar being out of control, and like, my goal is getting my blood sugar under control and keeping it under control. If I lose weight, that's great. If I don't, then whatever. But here's the thing: is our food drawing us closer to God, or is it drawing us away from Him? Does this honor God? You remember back in the night, for those of us who can remember, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? Kind of, sort of like that, but not really. Kind of, sort of. Does this honor Jesus? Does this draw me closer to Him, or does it take me away? No matter what decision we make in our lives, these are just a few of the examples of things that are all right in our culture that unfortunately, like, divorce is rampant in the church. I'm like, divorce is rampant in the church. I mean, it's unbelievable. When our girls were in school, they were the only ones in their grade who had parents who were still married. Everyone else was either living with grandparents or they had divorced. Their parents were divorced. It was an odd thing for somebody's parents to be married. We were only one of maybe a handful of parents in the whole school who were still married. And even then, I mean, I didn't have kids with my first wife, but even then I've been divorced. I just don't have kids. No matter what it is, we need to ask ourselves, is this drawing me closer to God, or is this drawing me away from Him? And here's the big idea. Here's what I want you to get out of this. As citizens of the kingdom of heaven, this is our identity. We are citizens of a higher kingdom. I've been saying that for months now. We are citizens of a higher kingdom. As citizens of that higher kingdom of heaven, Our call is to be countercultural. We are to not go the way of the world and be gray, bland sheep. We are to turn bright colors and go against the grain, even when that is socially awkward, especially when it is socially awkward. Let me also say this. We are not to be culture followers, but culture makers. We're not supposed to be culture followers. Our intention as citizens of the kingdom of heaven is to be dictating culture and where it goes, not to be following it. We have to be culture makers, culture creators. That's who we are. It's who we're called to be. We cannot go with the flow, so to speak. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah did not go with the flow. Now, I'm not going to turn this into a health and wealth gospel, but I'm telling you, you can read here. We read it. Like, the king found them 10 times better than anyone else. Why do you think that is? It's because they followed God. Spoiler alert in this, like this whole sermon series, but I'm telling you, Nebuchadnezzar eventually comes around and turns to Yahweh, God of the Bible. I would chalk that up to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, because they were not afraid to go against the culture. They did not follow culture. They were culture creators. We can't afford not to be. God puts all the right people in the right place at the right time for the right purpose. You are not where you are by accident. You are where you are on purpose. Sometimes when it feels like it's the darkest, you are not being buried. You're being planted. Grow where you've been planted. Take a moment and at this time, like that's what this invitation time is for. We're all being called to deeper waters. We're all being planted in something. And the question is what is it that God is calling you to this morning? What is it that you need to come up to the altar and you need to lay it down? What, and let me also say this: when you come up to the altar and you lay it at the foot of the cross, don't expect that it's just going to go away and everything's going to be happy, hunky dory, and peachy keen, and everything's going to be happy because Sherry and I have experienced this. It's like, well, what's wrong? Like I've been up to the altar like 15 times and I'm still battling this. Why am I still battling this? Because you got to take a step forward. You got to take a step forward. God is not a magic genie who's just going to, I'll grant you 3 wishes. God's not going to do that. We have got to take a step forward and go, God, I'm willing to be used by you for your purposes. Help me to take the right steps. I'm scared half to death. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. But I trust you. And that's all I need.